I have come to talk more about some of my vintage things. So I grabbed some stuff here and I'm gonna talk about it. So if you've seen my last video, I was talking about the 1970s fashion. I don't really know what these are called. Step-by-step patterns. So usually if you're a sewer, you would get one of these. And they have instructions on how to sew a specific fabric in order to look like a dress on the picture. And so I found this, like I said, at a thrift store. And there was a bunch of them. I had to like sift through them. And I think this is the oldest one. That's why I got it. So it's 1974, I believe. Where did I find the date on this? Okay, so the McCall Pattern Company, Park Avenue, New York, copyright 1974. So this thing, these instructions, everything was made in 1974. Was copyrighted and printed in 1974. So I've never taken these out fully, and I don't really want to. But it's just really, really cool patterns, and you can just kind of follow along step by step if you want to create an authentic 1970s. You know, people bought these in 1970s and tried to follow along if they made their own clothes, and that's really, really cool. And it ended up in my hands. So that's one of them. That's really cool. A recent thing that I got actually was this matchstick. So this matchstick is from, see if you can see it from the glare from the light. I don't know if you can read some of the words on there, but it's from a closed down supermarket food fair. So I believe it was closed down around late 1950s, and this food fair was from the 1940s to 50s, I believe. I forgot. I read up on it. I forgot everything. I should write a note and stick it on there. But this was printed out and packaged in the 1950s. Not sure the specific year in the 1950s because it doesn't say. But the seller, I bought it off of eBay. The seller had some information for me, and I knew that this was from the 1950s, and it's really, really cool because Food Fair was a 1950s strictly supermarket. I don't know if anyone has played the video game L.A. Noire, which is set in the 1940s. It's really cool that I got this because I really love that game. And the game has, you know, in the game you play as a detective, and as a detective you find clues, and most of the clues are matchsticks. And you kind of like go, you know, continue your investigation off of the phone numbers and if they're a regular at that supermarket or bar or wherever the matchstick came from. So it's really cool. That's why I got it. But Food Fair, I mean, it's incredible. 1950s matchstick, and I've actually took it out of its packaging. It's very hard to put back, so I'm not going to take it out again. I was struggling, but I took it out and I held it, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I love touching the vintage things because that just brings me closer to that year. Another thing that I cleaned out my vintage collection because it was all on one shelf, but I wanted to like spread it out so you can see some of them more prominently, and I actually forgot that I had this, but this I believe is the oldest thing that I own that I know actually came from the era. Like I have some I have some 1600s Chinese yen, but I don't actually know if it's from that era. I just did a little research and, oh, that looks like that. So I'm going to have to get those appraised. I have a document from the 1950s. I also have to get appraised because I'm not totally sure if that's real or not. But from my knowledge, as much as I know, 1500s they used fabric more than papyrus. If you were kind of like a hierarchy, you used fabric as paper. Sometimes you used papyrus, but papyrus was a little outdated because they were using that in the Egyptian times, and so I have to get those appraised. So this is the oldest item that I own that I know for sure is the oldest. This is medical. Oh, I was gonna say the word. It was used for medical purposes. These are throat wafers, so nowadays we know them as mints, or peppermints, or breath mints. These were throat wafers. It is unfortunately empty, and there's a paper in here that shows the information on it and stuff. I believe 1850s or 1860s. Not really sure. Let me see without showing my address. 1800s, so I don't know the specific date, but I'm thinking around 1850s to 60s because it looks a little prominent to me to be from the 1850s to 60s. Dr. X stones. I'm trying to be very, very careful in closing this. It is made from tin, so it is metal. It says the price on it that people bought it in the 1800s was 25 cents, which in the 1800s was a lot, actually. Nowadays, that would be like $10. So it's $10 for this. It says, the ingredients says elm bark, licorice, sugar, caraya gum, potassium chlorate, potassium nitrate, I don't know how to say this other word, ipecac, anise, and menthol. So it was like a breath mint. Very, very interesting because it is from the 1800s, and it is truly from the 1800s. It says pleasant, soothing, cooling, established 1883. So I was wrong. The company was established in 1883. So these throat wafers could have been from anywhere between 1883 to whenever Dr. X Stone stopped making these. So that's really cool, in my opinion. It says, especially designed to fit the mouth and retain while speaking, singing, and using voice. Widely used by public speakers, ministers, teachers for hoarseness, tickling of throat, coughing, etc., due to minor irritation of the throat. For irritated conditions of the throat, hoarseness, tickling, it just says the same thing over again. Yeah, this is really, really cool. And I totally forgot I had this. I think it was a gift. Really cool. So, the other thing I want to kind of glide into, I have another medical thing. It is a book, but it is in this box. So, it's in this box. It says Civil War era. Old tattered medicine book. The reason why it is in this box, I would love to have it out, but I have to have it in this box because it is tattered. It looks as if it was maybe put in a fire and someone tried to get it out really quickly. It is very, very tattered, but I'm very lucky to have it because it is Civil War era medical book. Now, the page that has the specific date on it that it was printed and copyrighted is not available, and so I can't really know for sure what date it is. But the seller on eBay, this came from eBay, the seller had information for me on this one as well, and this is from the Civil War, 1865, 18, yeah, Civil War era, 1865. So really, really cool. I'm gonna see. I have no idea how to open it. It was getting ready to open. Oh yeah, it opens from the bottom. So I normally don't get this out because this is very, very fragile and I'm very careful with it. But it is about this size. It is a red book, and it has, it was made very expensively because you can tell the cover page has this pattern on it that was prominent in the 1860s, but for more hierarchy books, like medical books and like books that professors used and smart people used. Art books, it also is. The cover design is also found on most art books as well. So medical books, art books, smart hierarchy books, rich books. So I'm not gonna take it out, but believe me, it is very, very tattered. So if I try and take it out, there's pieces that fall off of it sometimes, and when I bought it, I didn't know it was gonna be that tattered, but even if it is tattered, it is very interesting to me because it is a medical book from 1865 or beyond. Really cool. Okay. So now that I know the throat wafers are from 1880s, that 1865 book, 1860s, 1870s book is the oldest thing that I own, that I know for sure is from that era. Last things I want to show you really quickly, it is already 12 minutes of this video. Music sheets I got from Bookman's, which is really cool because they have some good vintage things that people just throw at them because they don't want it anymore. So if many of you know me, I was a musician for 7-8 years, violin. I don't think any of these are violin. I think most of these are books and jazz music. So this one is my absolute favorite music score that I own because I believe it's this one, right? Yes. So this one was copyrighted and printed in the 1920s. I can get you the specific year in a second. 1929. So this is a jazz music book, I believe, for piano, and I think, oh, I'm very itchy from something. I keep touching my nose. And the book actually smells. It gives off a old kind of smell. It's not too bad, but if you get like close to it, like how I was close to it, it gives off a very old kind of scent. So I definitely keep that in the box. This one has, okay, so this one is singing. So this one is voice scores. So from the 1920s as a jazz book, very interesting to me because the 1920s was very jazzy. It was a very jazzy time, and it was beginning to be the 1930s. So it was beginning the jazz clubs and everything that you always see in movies and video games and TV shows. They slowly died down in the beginning of the 1930s or mid 1930s, like 1931 or 1930 to 1934, something like that. So jazz clubs were very prominent in the 1920s. So it's very cool that I own this. These other ones are just very old. This one is a piano, I believe. Oh, ukulele. This one's ukulele, and this one's from 1950. So it has two years. It has 1942 and it has 1950. So it says copyright renewed 1942 and then arrangement copyright 1950. So this brand or this thing, this music score was copyrighted in 1942, but it was printed in 1950. What did I say? 1950? Ah. Yeah, 1950. So this one's 1950. This one is, let's see. It says copyright 1911, copyright renewed 1939. So it was copyrighted in 1911, but it was printed in 1939. And this one is a voice one as well as a singing music sheet. And this one is just a newspaper. I did not know that I grabbed this. It was stuck to one of the, in between the music sheets, I think. It's not an old newspaper at all. It's meant to look old, but it was printed nowadays. All right, 16.5-minute video. I hope you enjoyed.